If you're reading this, it means I couldn't tell you the truth while I was alive. I read that line 3 times, and the whole world I thought I knew just collapsed. My name is Ava Callahan. I'm 29 years old, and up until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had a pretty solid handle on who I was. I grew up in Portland, Southeast Side off Hawthorne Boulevard, in a little craftsman house that always smelled like coffee and old books. My mom, Diane, raised me alone. She worked double shifts at Providence Hospital as a registered nurse for 22 years. Never complained once. I worshipped that woman. I really did. She passed away from a brain aneurysm on a Tuesday morning in March. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. And now here I was, standing in her empty house, trying to figure out what to do with the rest of her life. My whole life, my mom told me the same story whenever I asked about my dad. She'd say his name was Robert, that they'd met at a summer festival in Santa Cruz when she was 22, all sunscreen and acoustic guitars, and the kind of reckless optimism only summer in California can give you. She said they fell hard and fast, the way young people do. But then she found out she was pregnant, and before she could even tell him, he died. A car accident on Highway 1, somewhere between Santa Cruz and Monterey. Killed instantly. She always told that story with the same quiet sadness. Just enough detail to feel real, just vague enough that I never thought to question it. I was her daughter. Why would I question it? But here's what I never told anyone. I had Googled that accident 100 times. Different keywords, different dates, different names. I never found a single record, not one. And I always told myself, maybe I just didn't have enough information. Maybe records that old weren't digitized. Maybe some things just couldn't be found. I was wrong about that. I just didn't know it yet. I was in her bedroom closet on a Thursday afternoon, going through her winter coats to donate to Goodwill. It was gray and cold outside, the kind of Portland drizzle that makes you feel like the sky is grieving too. I pulled out an old brown bomber jacket. I'd never seen her wear it. It felt heavier than it should. I put my hand in the inside pocket and felt nothing. But when I squeezed the body of the coat, something shifted. Something solid and flat. I looked closer at the inner lining. And that's when I saw it. Hand stitching. Tight and careful, like someone had sat down with a needle and thread and sewn something inside the lining on purpose. Hidden it. My mom was a nurse, not a seamstress. She could barely sew a button back on. My hands were already shaking when I grabbed a pair of scissors from her sewing basket and cut the stitches. And there it was, a sealed envelope, ivory-colored, old. No name on the front, nothing, just sealed. I sat down on the floor of that closet, right there on the hardwood, and I tore it open. The letter was in my mom's handwriting. I recognized it immediately. The little loop she always put on her lowercase L's, the way she pressed hard on her periods like she was making sure the sentence was truly finished. It started with that line, "If you're reading this, it means I couldn't tell you the truth while I was alive." She wrote that my father's name wasn't Robert, it was Daniel Mercer, and he wasn't dead. She said she'd left him, or rather escaped from him, before I was born. That she'd moved from Los Angeles to Portland specifically to disappear. She'd changed her last name back to her maiden name, started over, built a life for both of us. And then the warning. Do not go looking for him unless you're ready to understand why I kept him hidden. Tucked in the fold of the letter was a torn piece of paper with an address, somewhere in the hills outside Los Angeles. I sat in that closet for 2 hours. I couldn't move. My mom's older sister Carol lived 40 minutes away in Beaverton, in a ranch house with a ceramic owl collection and a vegetable garden she talked about like it was a second job. I drove out there that same night. I didn't call ahead, I just showed up. When Carol opened the door and saw my face, she already knew something was wrong. I didn't even sit down all the way before I pulled out the letter, and the moment I said the words, "Mom wrote about my father, his real name," Carol's face went white. Not pale, white, like the blood just evacuated. She pushed the letter back to me without reading it. She said, "Where did you find that?" I told her, "Inside the coat lining." She closed her eyes, and then she said, very quietly, almost to herself, You should have never found that." I asked her what she knew. She wouldn't look at me. She just said, "Ava, your mother made choices to protect you. Please respect that." That was the wrong thing to say to me. That was the exact wrong thing. I left at 4 a.m. I didn't sleep. I just packed a bag. Jeans, a couple of flannels, my phone charger, $60 cash I had in my junk drawer, and I got in my car. I-5 south, nearly 1,000 miles. I stopped once for gas in Redding, California, got a black coffee in a Nature Valley bar from a Flying J, and just kept driving. Somewhere around Stockton, I realized my hands were still shaking. I kept thinking about my mom. All those years she worked nights at Providence Hospital to give me a good life, to pay for my college applications, to come to every single one of my soccer games, even when she'd been on her feet for 12 hours. All those years she carried this, and she carried it alone. The address on that piece of paper was in the hills above Malibu Canyon. I pulled it up on my phone. No Google Street View, no satellite image with any detail, just a winding road through dense trees, and nothing else. By the time Los Angeles appeared on the highway signs, something in my gut was screaming at me to turn around. I didn't turn around. The house was about 14 miles up Malibu Canyon Road, past where the cell service died, and the paved road turned to gravel. It was the kind of property that doesn't show up on Zillow, the kind of place someone goes to specifically because no one comes looking. The gate was open. I don't know if that made it better or worse. I parked and sat in my car for a full 5 minutes, just staring at the front door. The house was completely dark. The only sound was wind through the canyon and something that might have been crows. I told myself, if this man is dangerous, the letter would have said more. If my mom didn't want me here, she wouldn't have left the address. Or maybe she did want me to know, but not to come. I got out anyway. My sneakers crunched on the gravel. I walked up to the front door and it was unlocked. And that is when everything changed. The living room walls were covered in photographs. Not art, not family portraits the way normal people hang them. Photographs of my mother, my mom, everywhere, floor to ceiling. Diane in her 20s at some beach I didn't recognize. Diane in her 30s, in her scrubs, on the sidewalk outside Providence Hospital in Portland, which meant someone had followed her there. Diane at the Hawthorne Fred Meyer. Diane at Laurelhurst Park, laughing, on a Sunday afternoon I actually remembered. I was 7, and we'd gone to feed the ducks. I was in some of those photos. A little girl in pigtails holding her mom's hand, completely unaware. He had been watching us, both of us, for years. I was so focused on the walls that I didn't hear the footsteps behind me. And then a voice said, very calmly, "She told you I was dead, didn't she?" I turned around so fast I nearly lost my balance. He was standing in the doorway that led to the back of the house. An older man, early 60s maybe, silver hair, broad-shouldered but tired-looking, wearing a flannel shirt and dark work jeans. He looked like a man who'd spent his whole life outdoors and his whole life indoors at the same time, like he'd withdrawn from the world a long time ago. But his eyes, light gray, quiet, careful. I had those eyes. I'd looked in the mirror my whole life and wondered where my eyes came from, because my mom's were dark brown. And standing there in a stranger's living room, surrounded by photographs of my dead mother, who wasn't dead, I was looking at the answer. He said, very quietly, "I'm Daniel. I've been waiting a long time for this." I couldn't speak. I just stared at him. And then he said something that rearranged every single piece of the story I thought I understood. He asked me to sit down, and something in his voice made me do it. He told me everything. He said that he and my mom had met in Los Angeles in 1994, that they had fallen in love, genuinely, and that when she found out she was pregnant with me, they were happy, both of them. But there was a man my mom had been involved with before Daniel, someone powerful and connected in ways that weren't talked about openly. Someone who, when he found out Diane was pregnant with another man's child and planning to build a life with that man, decided he wasn't going to allow it. Daniel said this man had resources. He had people. And one night, someone broke into Daniel's apartment in Silver Lake and made it very clear. Leave Diane, leave Los Angeles, And don't make contact, or Diane and the baby would be in danger. He told me, I didn't leave because I stopped loving your mother. I left to keep you both alive. He slid the manila folder across the table. Inside, police reports that were never followed up on. Letters he'd tried to send my mom that were returned unopened. Intercepted, he believed. A private investigator's report from 2003 documenting that Diane was being monitored. He wasn't watching her to be obsessive. He was watching her to know she was safe. He looked at me and said, and I will never forget this. I stayed away to protect you. The truth isn't that I disappeared, it's that someone was making sure your mother never left. And in that moment, I understood why the letter said what it said. It wasn't an invitation to find him. It was a warning, because whatever had been watching my mother for 30 years might still be out there. I don't know how long we sat there. The coffee went cold. The canyon outside went fully dark and silent. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't try to explain away 30 years. He just laid it all out on the table, literally, and let me decide what to do with it. I thought about my mom, about the nights she never talked about herself, the way she'd changed the subject whenever I asked about California, the way she always triple-locked the front door, even in our safe little Portland neighborhood, the way she'd sometimes look out the living room window for just a beat too long. She'd been scared her whole life, and she'd carried that fear so that I never had to. I stood up. I didn't know I was going to do it until I was already doing it. I walked around the table, and Daniel stood up, and we looked at each other. A 62-year-old man and the daughter he'd never been allowed to know. And then I put my arms around him, and he held on like someone who'd been waiting 30 years for permission to. I cried. He cried. Neither of us said anything for a long time, and the word Dad didn't come out of my mouth that night, but it was sitting right there on the edge of everything, waiting. We spent 3 days at that house in the canyon. Daniel told me everything he knew. Names, dates, the name of the man who had threatened him. A man who, it turned out, had died in 2019, which explained why my mother had finally written that letter. The threat was gone. She was going to tell me the truth. She just ran out of time. I hired an attorney in Los Angeles, a woman who specializes in exactly this kind of civil case. We're building a file. I don't know where it leads. I don't know if there's anyone left to hold accountable. But I know my mother spent 29 years being afraid of something, and I refused to just let that disappear. I called Aunt Carol. She cried for 20 minutes straight. She said she'd known pieces of it, but not all of it. She said my mom had sworn her to silence. I forgave her. Because what else do you do? Daniel and I talk every few days now. It's awkward sometimes. We're strangers learning to be something more than strangers. He wants to come to Portland someday to see the house my mom built. I think I'll let him. And every now and then, I go back to that bomber jacket in her closet, the one with the cut lining. And I think about my mom, sitting alone at some point, maybe a late night when I was asleep, carefully stitching that envelope into the lining. Planning, preparing. She hid the truth her whole life to keep me safe. And then, in the end, she hid the truth inside a coat so that I could find it. That's the most her thing she ever did. I miss her every single day. But now, for the first time in my life, I know the whole story. And knowing it doesn't hurt less, but it makes the grief make sense. And sometimes, that's the best you can do. If this story hit you somewhere deep, if it made you think about the secrets families keep, the love that survives silence, or the courage it takes to follow a letter into the unknown, please hit that like button. Leave a comment below telling me what you think Ava should do next. Subscribe so you never miss another story like this one. These stories are real. These families are real. And every one of them deserves to be heard. Want to hear another story about a family torn apart by secrets? And what happened when the truth finally came out? Click the video on your screen right now. You will not believe how it ends.